Hello, this is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. Today we have a question, not pandemic related, so I'm very, very happy. The question comes from Jennifer, who on the video about parenting asked the question, is it ever too late to fix the mistakes you've made? If your kids are teenagers, is it just changing your behavior enough to change their impressions of right and wrong? Now, this is a really excellent question, and I'm so glad that Jennifer asked this because it opens up the ability to talk about change and the concept of what change is really about. When you work in therapy, when the person comes in, are they generally a child or an adult? Now, there are children that get therapy, there's no question about it. But primarily, if you take a look at the vast majority of people seeking therapy are adults. And you'll say, wait a minute, what are you going to do? They're too old. So I just want you to think about this, about the age that you have when you come into therapy. Does that say, well, I'm too old to be in therapy? I've been doing this for 45 years, I'm too old. An addict, somebody that suffers with addiction. Do they come into therapy saying, I've been doing this now for 15 years, there's no way I can change this? So Jennifer, to answer your question just as a small answer, the answer is, of course, the ability to change is there. Of course, you as a parent, your role never stops. Your change of behavior on a bad trait that you taught can absolutely be fixed or get better. Now, does that mean that your child will automatically do it? And this now comes to a very, very important point. Are parents responsible solely for their children's behavior? And the answer is no. Yes, you could do things that are improper as a parent that leads it to more likely problems and issues. And that's why you want to do the best that you can. But you could do a great job as a parent. And your children can get involved with some other outside influences that could change things dramatically. A child can have a horrible experience at a day camp that changes things dramatically. An accident or a trauma could take place that will change things dramatically. That doesn't mean the parent failed. It means that there are trials and tribulations that take place in life that sometimes we have no control over. If you do a great job as a parent, does that mean your child is going to be an automaton and follow everything the parent says and does? I don't think so either. So you want to do the best job that you can with setting up the best parameters that you can, with setting up the best path that you can create. But at the same time, recognizing that there is no way to guarantee the outcome. Too many times we focus in on outcomes. We just went ahead and had this huge issue. Right? The stock market has dropped dramatically, and there are plenty of people that sold out. And they went ahead, I'm not going to go ahead and do this. Investing is too risky. Does that mean investing is too risky forever? Does that mean you should never invest again? Does it mean you should have sold? It depends on what your strategy is and what you're trying to do. So it really depends on the parenting that you do, the relationship that you have with your child, the manner by which you talk to them and that relationship builds or dissipates that will create or negate what you're trying to teach or do. Sometimes a parent tries to push in one direction and that makes the child go directly in the opposite direction. Sometimes a child looking for support, and because the child doesn't get it, they become self-destructive. So it's not a one answer fits all. But if you say, is it too late? The answer is of course not. If it was, there'd be no purpose to therapy. There'd be no purpose to anybody learning from anybody else. One of the big problems I've always had with the idea of determinists is that their own philosophy undermines their own thinking process. Right? If everything is determined prior, then whether I believe this or don't believe it wasn't a decision I made. It was predetermined. Therefore, I didn't do anything. And that's the problem in the mindset. By a determinist mindset, nobody should be ever in jail because they didn't ever choose anything. And of course, in practicality, we don't work that way. It's very interesting how even determinists talk about things. They talk about the idea of we work with the illusion of free will, which is a nice way of saying, well, we can't work that way in practicality. So we always believe in the ability for change. I very strongly believe in people's ability to change. I work on it daily. I don't ever give up on people that they have no capacity for change. The problem is, as the old joke says, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is one, but the light bulb has to want to change. The motivation of the person becomes very, very great. So one of the things you want to do is to increase motivation. Now, some people say if you try to increase motivation, isn't that coercion? And sometimes it is. If you have people that are living under your roof, well, then you have rules to make. Because if you don't, then you're enabling. You see, a lot of times we accept certain behaviors thinking we're doing the right thing. I'm helping them out. But meanwhile, I'm enabling them to become self-destructive. So what you want to set up, again, is the idea of I'm going to help them by saying, well, if you want to live here, these are the things that you need to do. If you want to be in a relationship with me, these are behaviors that you need to be doing. If you don't, that's fine. It gives the person the ability to choose. And then, of course, you have the famous, well, you can't lead a horse to water and make him drink. And I love the answer by Father Martin that he gave in the 1960s. He goes, no, don't give me enough of that. But you can bring a horse to water and make him thirsty. And if you present something to them and create an idea about why this is so much better, it incorporates into them a desire for wanting to change. And then change becomes something that they want to do. How many people have forced a spouse into couples therapy? In my experience, it's been most. It's very rare for two people to say, you know something? We both need counseling. We should go together. More often than not is, one spouse says to the other, if we're not doing this, I'm out of here. And in many cases, therapy works and people get better and the relationship can get better. Because it motivates the other person to want to change. And just like you can motivate an adult to want to change, you can motivate an adult child to want to change. And it's important to get direction and help in terms of how you do that. Because at times, you may do one action and it becomes counterproductive. And if you do another action, it can be very productive. And sometimes it's very subtle. The number one thing that I found in my career is that the relationship you have with somebody determines how much they want to change. Just to share, I was in a meeting not too long ago where somebody was intoxicated, and the person was pretty evident. And what was interesting is that after the meeting dispersed, and the person said to me, you remember when 9 years ago you did this with me? And all of a sudden they started opening up and all this stuff came out. And they talked about their loss and their pain and all these other issues. And it is so important not to be judgmental, but to have judgment. You don't say you're bad, you're horrible for what you did. Look what you did. But this behavior, is it best for you? Is this helping you? Is this creating your best environment? I'll share this with you as well. When I work with children, I normally start the year and I ask them a question. I say, do you want to make $50 an hour or $100 an hour? And all the kids always say $100 an hour, and they're so happy and proud when they say that. And I go, excellent. You're very, very smart. You're absolutely right. I said, how do you think that people make $100 an hour as opposed to $50? And they struggle with that generally. And then I try to help them make the connection between the things that they're doing at school and the ability for them to be successful in schools will lead more likely to success, to do closer to the $100 as opposed to the $50. Now I realize the numbers are arbitrary, but the idea is to help the child recognize that what they're doing in school is not you're just doing it in school. There's a reason, there's a purpose, there's something you're going to get out of it. And if a child recognizes that, it increases their motivation to say, you know something, I'm going to try a little harder. Don't give up on your children just because they're older. Help them to understand what you've learned now is more correct than what you thought before. As you get older and get more experience and you see more things, more often than not, you generally learn to get wiser. Not always. A lot of people I've met who don't incorporate learning. They maintain their positions despite facts and evidence. We see that a lot. But if your ego is able to dissipate and you're able to be able to admit when you're wrong, you're able to see when things are not working out, you don't stay in a state of denial, then fixing things becomes much easier and your learning process increases. Robert Kiyosaki gave a lecture. He was the author of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And in that book he talked about the concept that he wanted to fail because he saw fail as a learning process, not as something's the matter with me. I didn't fail because something's wrong with me. I failed because I did something wrong. And I hope you see that difference. All of us in here will do things that are wrong. Do we learn from it or do we continue to do it? Sometimes parents teach the wrong thing. It's going to happen. The idea is to fix it when you learn that you've done something wrong. And you always want the ability to learn. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you liked this video. I hope that you'll hit subscribe if you didn't. And if you like, there is a little button on the side of the bottom that says show more to go to Subcribe-star and become a patron as well to support this channel. I wish you a good night and good mental health, and thank you for joining me.